What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to the Crypto Catch Up. Of course, your number one place to catch up on crypto. Well, some of the news that we have gotten recently, in my opinion, will literally change Bitcoin forever. I do believe that Bitcoin will very likely never be the same again, especially going forward, and I'm going to explain all of that in today's video. We're going to take a quick look at the technicals, we're going to take a quick look at the fundamentals, and then we're going to dive into the news. And of course, I hope at the end of the video, you are feeling fully caught up on this world of crypto and Bitcoin. And so with that said, let's not waste any more time at all, and let's get straight into it. And I will give you one quick warning: if at any given point this video feels super complicated, it feels a little bit complex, maybe you're a bit confused, I am going to be releasing some beginners courses over in our Patreon, which is down below. I will talk about that later on, but it is only $5 a month, so stay tuned for that later in the video if that interests you. Now, let's take a quick look at what Bitcoin's price is doing. So let's get a kind of update on what's going on with the technicals, then we'll dive into the fundamentals, then the news. So where we are with Bitcoin is the same place that we've been for the last, we could call this thing about 7 days now, right? We have seen this thing really just going sideways, trending upwards, melting upwards, smashing through some of these little liquidity zones, but not really doing a ton. I think that, in moments like this, what's happening is that the market is bullish, don't get me wrong, and we are seeing buyers stepping in, but we are seeing the vast majority of more of your derivatives traders, a lot of your more long traders and things like that actually have an impact on the price. They're sitting down. I would say a lot of this is probably driven by spot purchasing. A lot of your derivatives traders, again, are seemingly not going as crazy right now and allowing this bad boy to cool down. As a result of it, we are seeing many of our indicators, such as our MACD, cooling down. We're seeing things such as our RSI cooling down, which is in a very good spot in my opinion. Now, when you do combine this with what we are seeing from our liquidation levels on a fundamental perspective, things are actually looking pretty dang on good. I'm not gonna lie, things are actually looking pretty dang on good. And I will let you know, if you do want to trade a little Bitcoin yourself, you can check out that Margex link down below. Guys, when you do sign up, you're gonna get up to $10,000 in bonuses and rewards if you specifically use my link down below. I do a lot of my trading over on this exchange, about 60 to 70% of it. I keep tens of thousands of dollars on this exchange, so feel free to go check that out down below if that is something that interests you. Again, you'll get up to $10,000 in bonuses and rewards. Now, comparing what we're seeing with Bitcoin's price over to what we're seeing with the fundamentals, it kind of backs up the fact that we are starting to see this market, cool down, relax, and many of our indicators and traders in general reset, which is a great thing because you need to see that for longevity. The only way that bull markets can sustain themselves and last is in these moments after you pump, you go sideways or you go slowly down or a little bit upwards and just cool down. You need these cool down phases. The moment you don't have cool down phases is the moment this market is going to be coming to an end. Mark my words. And what we can see from a liquidation perspective is that we're in that cool down moment. We're in a spot right now to where there's an equal amount of liquidations to the top side and the bottom side for the very first time in about a week. This means that if the market goes down, people will get liquidated. If it goes up, people will get liquidated. And when you're at a point of neutrality, it means that there's not a heavily weighted option right now. And generally, this is a good sign, again, that we are seeing a solid reset and a door of opportunity opening. Now, it wouldn't shock me if we do first and foremost see this market pull down a little bit to liquidate those people to the downside before trying to continue upwards. My general thought process here is it makes a lot of sense. Maybe, at some given point, if we give one more push upwards, then volatility to the downside, find a higher low, and then continue upwards. It wouldn't shock me if we see some sort of movement like this to try to liquidate both sides. So of course, just be very, very careful right now while we are in this cool down period, because people are going to get liquidated on many different areas. Okay. Now, comparing that with what we're seeing on the crypto fear and greed index, it does just further go to show that, we're in a bit of an interesting spot. You look at something like let's actually just zoom this bad boy all the way in. You can see here that although many of our indicators are pulling back, and although a lot of, the cool down is happening right now and the pullback is happening and our indicators are somewhat getting that reset, we're still in extreme greed. And this just goes to show that, look, if we're going to be in extreme greed and if this market's going to continue to rally, we need to see stuff like this. Because if we were in extreme greed and this thing was literally just going only up, I would be so concerned about us being in extreme greed. But the fact that we're here right now, but we are seeing prices sustain, we're seeing it maintain, we're seeing equal liquidations to the top side and the bottom side, it goes to tell me that we're in still a decent spot. And so it doesn't make me immediately start to worry that we're in extreme greed, although I don't particularly like it. Obviously, I'm not doing some huge buying right now because we don't usually sustain being in this level for very long, but we've been in here for months and months and months at a time before. So it is just a spot where you just have to understand that there is risk on the table if you do want to do some purchasing right now. But you got to understand that in a bull market, you're just going to be in greed and extreme greed, meaning that it's not the best time to be doing big buys and stuff like that. So looking a little bit forward now, let's go in a little bit more detail as to what's happening happening here, we can see on the 24-hour visual screener that we are seeing a rather decent balance between longs and shorts, which just does further go to show what we were talking about with the liquidations. In moments like these, and cooldowns, pullbacks, resets, whatever you want to call it, you're going to see a balance. People longing, people closing longs, people shorting, people closing shorts. You're going to see it in the spot because people don't really know what's going to happen. And that's what you want. You want people to lose their conviction a little bit in the short term, to not know, are we going up or are we going down? Because that will truly allow for enough liquidations in both directions and for indicators to reset enough to actually be able to continue the macro move upwards. And so visual screener does paint that picture for us. And if we go to something like our 24-hour RSI, you can see that we have seen it pull back a little bit back towards this neutral zone. Bitcoin, Doge, Solana, Render, all of these ones are extremely too high on the 24-hour in my opinion, but you are starting to see some of your other altcoins such as BNB, with ETH, Phil, etc. Some of those pulling back towards that neutral zone. So overall, again, I do believe we're in a great spot. Sure, this market may pull back a little bit at any given point to start trying to set a higher low, but this does feel like a fantastic reset and cool down, and it should open up the door of opportunity that even if we do pull back a little bit, we should be able to find the higher low and continue, which is all we're looking for. Long-term sustainable growth. Now, what I mentioned earlier, if this does feel a little bit complicated, what I do want you to know is that over in the Patreon, which is currently $5 a month if you want actual access, or just $1 a month if you just want to join the community, I am going to be posting some beginners courses. You're going to be able to see here, there's going to be 4 different beginners courses coming out, one on technical analysis, one on trading, one on meme coin and altcoin investing, and one on fundamental analysis. So all of the stuff that we do here on the channel on a daily basis, I'm releasing beginner 30-minute courses to the Patreon members for them to be able to access. It comes with a video and the actual PDF and some cheat sheets and all types of good stuff there. In addition to that, guys, I do post daily technical analysis, daily fundamental analysis, my thoughts about things that are going on, and much more. So feel free to go check that out down below if it does interest you, and if you feel like you could use a little extra help in this world of crypto. Now, moving forward a bit, let's go into what is happening in the news, because there are some big things going on. Now, we did get a little piece of news just now that Ukraine fires US-made long-range missiles into Russia for the first time. I said over in the Patreon, I said, listen, I can read this out to you because it's a little bit better. I said, as everyone mentioned in the general chat, or as the moderator mentioned in the general chat, there is some more stuff brewing right now between Ukraine and Russia, and it seems like it may escalate a bit. Although I'm not even remotely worried about it in the long term, I do think it could cause some volatility or pullbacks in the short term. So I took a little bit of profits off my super profitable trades and tightened up a few of my stop losses. Could end up being a nothing burger, but no point in playing risky during a bull market. And so as a result of this, again, I did pull a little bit of profit from those trades and tighten up my stop losses. But overall, I'm not very concerned about this. The market's somewhat used to it. Bitcoin's not heavily reacting to it in any way, so I'm not very concerned. So it shouldn't be a big deal, but just keep an eye on it just in case. Okay. Now, the bigger piece of news that I wanted to talk about today is what is going on with the Bitcoin options launch. We got an amazing article for Cointelegraph that I'm going to go through a little bit and talk about this, because in yesterday's video, I told you that we were going to start seeing US spot Bitcoin options hit the market, which is going to be extremely bullish, and it is going to provide way more liquidity than we probably ever have seen before for Bitcoin. But we actually got an in-depth breakdown with some more information about how this could work, some stats, some data, and more as to why this is such a big deal and why crypto could literally never be the same again as a result of this in a good way. So with that said, let's get into it. So we're going to do a little bit of reading today, guys, so bear with me here, but it is important because this is just such a great article, okay? So it says here that the imminent launch of spot Bitcoin exchange-traded fund options in the U.S. may be a huge deal because extra liquidity should entice a new wave of institutional and retail investors, according to industry executive John Consorti. The floodgates for Bitcoin's next evolution in financial markets are about to open. And so, of course, with that in mind, he goes on to say that the launch of spot Bitcoin ETF options, specifically for the IBIT vehicle, marks the beginning of a new era for price dynamics, volatility, and institution adoptions. He goes on to talk about a little bit more, which I'm not interested in, but this is where things get interesting. He said, this matters hugely because in traditional markets, derivatives are 10 to 20 times the size of the underlying market cap. But with Bitcoin, listed derivatives are less than 1% of the 1.8 trillion spot market cap. So if you were going to do this, if Bitcoin's, how do I explain this? If the derivative ratio compared to Bitcoin's market cap was going to be the same as traditional markets, we would see this be more like, 18 trillion? 30 trillion, whereas right now it's, I don't know that matter, 100 billion, something like that, something along those lines, which is, 180 billion, which is that's a big difference. I hope you understand. That is a very, very big difference. That's a 100x difference here. They go on to say that Bitcoin derivatives are vastly underdeveloped, and this limits the market's maturity because there is a huge institutional demand for these products from hedging and allocation perspectives. Consorti said that Bitcoin derivatives are traded offshore OTC on venues such as Deribit, which currently has $31 billion in open interest, while U.S. investors are locked out. The U.S. equity markets are the largest and most liquid in the world, comprising 44% of the $109 trillion global equity market, he said before adding. And so it's you got to understand the difference there. If we're saying, okay, in traditional markets, this would usually be what was the number that we said earlier? 18 trillion, 30 trillion, whereas right now it's 180 to 300 billion. That is a massive difference. That's a massive difference. And with that, of course, wouldn't be immediately. Like, we wouldn't just see this happen immediately for the derivatives market to get this big that fast. But it would take over time. But it very well might get that big. And if it gets that big, it's going to have an impact on Bitcoin that we've never seen before. Not only is it going to impact the overall supply, because although it's not technically purchasing directly the underlying asset Bitcoin from the supply, but it is using it. It is involved. And so, of course, because of that, if it's involved, people need to use it. If you need to use it, but there's not as much supply, that, of course, can impact the supply shock itself. And so, of course, it's going to have an impact on the supply shock. It's going to provide more liquidity to the world of crypto as a result of starting in Bitcoin and funneling down. It's going to introduce more institutional investors who can implement Bitcoin into their strategic reserves or whatever it may be. It's going to impact countries because more countries are going to recognize the credibility and validity of it all, as there is more liquidity, which should stabilize it to some degree, making it less risky. I mean, these are all impacts that it should have over the coming years. And so if this does develop to what they think that it very well might, this is not going to, Bitcoin will never be the same again. It will be better. It will be more stable. It will have more credibility. It will be more mass adopted. And that should flow liquidity through the entire ecosystem, legitimizing crypto even more than it is now. And so because of this, I mean, people are sleeping on this news. They don't recognize just how big this is. And of course, I hope you guys do see that now. And so overall, where we are, absolutely fantastic news. I love what we're seeing from Bitcoin's price. I love what we're seeing from the reset here. And overall, things are looking damn good. So don't forget, if you do want to trade some Bitcoin yourself, you can trade it on up to 100x leverage with that Margex link down below if you do want up to $10,000 in bonuses and rewards. And don't forget to check out the Patreon down below for just $5 a month. You can get access to my crash courses, daily fundamental analysis, daily technical analysis, my thoughts and insights, and much more. Or for just $1 a month, you can join the community, talk to me, talk to some other like-minded individuals, and get better in crypto. And so with that in mind, of course, I hope you guys did enjoy today's episode of the Crypto Catch Up, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Peace out, everybody.